So today we found what may be one of the most haunted masks in the world. But to understand why this mask is so evil, we need to go back to the beginning. In 2019, my friend Liam and I decided to do something crazy. We were gonna buy an island. Now this wasn't just any island. It was a small private island off the coast of British Columbia called Crescent Island. I made a whole video about it if you want to learn more. But basically, when we found it, it looked like this. There was an old cabin that hadn't been lived in for decades, surrounded by thick forest and an even thicker layer of dust. The island had been uninhabited for so long that nature was starting to reclaim it. Trees had grown through the roof of the cabin, and vines had taken over everything. But while exploring the island, there was one thing that stood out amongst all of the clutter: an old wooden chest hidden underneath the floorboards of the cabin. And when we finally pried it open, inside we found a leather journal and this creepy old mask. As soon as I saw it, I could feel a chill down my spine, like a sudden wave of ice water being poured directly into my bones. It was a strange feeling, but despite how unsettling the mask made me feel, I couldn't help but feel drawn to it. Its intricate design and weathered appearance held a certain allure that I couldn't resist. I knew right then and there that this mask was no ordinary artifact. There was something about it that was different, something that set it apart from anything I had ever seen before. I started reading the journal, which was filled with cryptic writings and strange symbols that I couldn't decipher. It felt like trying to read a language from another world. But as I continued to pore over the pages, I began to notice a pattern, a recurring symbol that seemed to be a signature of the author. It was a spiral, a vortex of sorts that seemed to represent a portal to another realm or dimension. The more I looked at it, the more I felt a sense of dread wash over me. It was as if the journal itself was trying to warn me, telling me to stay away, to turn back while I still could. But curiosity got the best of me, and I pressed on, determined to uncover the secrets hidden within its yellowed pages. I didn't listen to the warnings, not at first anyway. As I delved deeper into the journal, the writing became more frantic, more desperate. The author spoke of strange rituals and sacrifices, of summoning ancient beings from beyond our world. He wrote of power, of unimaginable power that could be harnessed with the help of the mask. That's when I realized the mask wasn't just an artifact. It was a key to unlocking the darkest secrets of the universe. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something truly evil, something that should have remained buried in the past. But greed got the best of me, and I wanted to see what kind of power the mask had. I tried it on, and immediately regretted it. The moment the mask touched my skin, I felt a jolt of energy surge through my body. It was like being struck by lightning, but 1,000 times worse. I ripped the mask off my face and threw it to the ground. I didn't want its power. Whatever it was too much, too overwhelming. And that's when I heard it. A voice, a raspy whisper that seemed to come from the depths of hell itself. It said my name. It knew my name. And then it started laughing, a harsh grating sound that echoed around the cabin, bouncing off the walls and amplifying its evil. I ran. I don't remember where I was going. I just kept running until I collapsed on the beach, tears streaming down my face, my whole body trembling with fear. When I finally looked back at the cabin, it was like something out of a nightmare. The trees around it were swaying violently in the wind, their branches clawing at the sky. The windows of the cabin seemed to be staring back at me, their darkness filled with malevolent eyes that watched my every move. I never went back to that cabin, not after what happened that day. I left the island as fast as I could, never looking back. Then I buried the memory of what happened there deep inside me, locked it away in the darkest recesses of my mind, where it would hopefully never see the light of day again. Years passed and I thought I had put the events of that day behind me. I tried to move on with my life, pretending like nothing had ever happened, but the mask it wouldn't let me. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, waiting for me to make a move so it could strike. I could feel its presence in my nightmares, hear its laughter echoing in my dreams. I was trapped in a never-ending cycle of fear and paranoia, always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's why I was so relieved when I learned that someone else had bought the island, hoping that they would tear down the cabin and put everything that happened there to rest. But now, years later, I've gotten a call from the new owner of Crescent Island. He told me that he and his family had been living on the island for the past few months, and that things had exactly been going smoothly. You see, he and his family had planned to make the old cabin their home, restore it to its former glory, and live out their days in peace. But that plan had quickly fallen apart. You see, ever since he moved into the cabin, strange things had been happening. Unexplainable phenomena that defied logic and reason. For example, he and his family had been hearing whispers in the night, voices that seemed to come from nowhere, speaking in a language that he didn't understand. Then there were the shadows, dark, ominous shapes that seemed to dance around the corners of his vision, always there, but never quite visible. And then there was the feeling, a heavy oppressive presence that seemed to linger in the cabin and follow him everywhere he went. It was as if something dark and evil was watching his every move, waiting for him to make a slip, waiting for him to stumble so it could pounce. At first, he had tried to ignore these strange occurrences, chalking them up to the age of the cabin or the isolation of the island. But as time went on, they only became more frequent and more intense. culminating in the destruction of his boat. It had been a beautiful old wooden boat, lovingly restored, a thing of beauty and grace. But one morning he had woken up to find it destroyed, splintered and broken, as if some unseen force had risen in the night and smashed it to pieces. It was then that he realized that he was not alone on the island, that there was something else there with him, something dark and sinister that was trying to make him pay. And that's when he called me. He told me about all the strange things that had been happening about the toll. It was taking on him and his family, and he asked me if I knew anything about the history of the island, anything that might help him understand what he was dealing with. And that's when I told him about the mask. I told him about the journal, about the rituals and the sacrifices, about the unspeakable evil that lurked beneath the surface of the island. When I finished my story, there was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could hear him breathing heavily, his voice shaking as he spoke. He asked me what he should do, how he could stop the evil that was plaguing him, how he could protect himself and his family from whatever it was that was watching them in the shadows. I didn't know what to tell him. I was in the same position once before, and as he knows, I didn't exactly win that battle. All I could muster was a warning, a plea for him to run, to get as far away from the island as possible before it was too late. But would he listen? Would he heed my warning and escape before it was too late? Or would he stay and fight, hoping to conquer the darkness that had claimed him? Only time will tell. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and leave a like. Also, check out my podcast, where I talk about all things paranormal. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.